Hey there, it's Renee Bengelsdorf, CEO of Charlie Bravo, here to talk to you about how to save money on your next airplane. So, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are in the world watching this. I love technology, but sometimes technology is not our friend. So, I'm hoping to get through this without any problems. If you do have problems, please send me a chat, and my staff here will help with those technical issues. So going over a few other basic housekeeping items as we start the webinar today. First, you should be able to view the panel on the side that has a question block. If you have a question, please type it in here as you think of it, and I'll get to as many of these as I can at the end of the webinar. Secondly, at the end of this webinar, I'll be talking about a program with more than $25,000 in free resources. You're not going to want to miss that. So let's get to this. I'm always interested in what highly successful people think, and I like to start my presentations with the things they've said. Today is no exception. This quote is from Bill Gates. The airplane became the first World Wide Web, bringing people, languages, ideas, and values together. But this begs the question, why is that really important? I think the chairman of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Andrew Taylor, puts it in perspective. Using business aviation allows us to visit 3 and 4 cities in a single day. And Warren Buffett drives the point home. In business, as in life, you're just not as likely to see eye to eye if you're not face to face. If you're a wise business person, you likely know you could benefit from private aviation. But you also recognize there are lots of ways to lose money with private jets. I'm going to spend the next 30 or so minutes telling you how I've saved my clients millions of dollars, sometimes in a single transaction, and how you can use some of those secrets for yourself. Many of them apply no matter what size aircraft or transaction you're talking about. So who is this webinar for? This is for people who are not professional aircraft buyers. It's for people who don't have time to deal with mistakes, either their own or those of their team. And it's for people who don't want to make a costly mistake by missing a step buying an airplane. At your age, I guarantee you don't want an airplane like this. This webinar is for people who want to maximize their budget and not just spend money like it grows on trees. So what we've found here at Charlie Bravo over the years is we've helped hundreds of clients. The ones who end up with the best deals are the ones who ask questions, those most eager to learn, and not the ones who are know-it-alls to begin with. So here's what's possible if you ask the right questions. You can anticipate the pitfalls ahead of time. You have the confidence to put a team together you feel really has your best interest at heart. And by knowing what you're doing, you can save a ton of money. One particularly smooth transaction we completed last year that I'll use as an example is a Falcon 900 acquisition. I know this is a large plane and some of you may be buying small planes, but the same principles apply. We looked at this family's business and their personal travel. They're a grown family and they're expanding their business to Europe. We made sure their local management company had expertise in Falcon maintenance. We were able to advise them that the market conditions were prime for purchase of a large aircraft. It was in the summer of 2016, and during that time, the large jet market was very depressed, even more so than it is now. We found the seller in another part of the world with a weaker currency. We made sure they had their advanced tax planning so they weren't paying more taxes than they had to on this aircraft. And we worked with their attorney on their 1031 exchange, plus the way they were going to set everything up going forward with the new aircraft. Because of our market research, we bought the plane for them approximately $3 million below market value. It really helped that we know what the market value was, and we have a research staff dedicated to knowing those things. But there are some ways you can look for those values yourself. We managed the entire deal in such a way that the importation was not a headache, and we worked with the management company and the FAA during the pre-purchase inspection to ensure we were going to be able to import it easily. That being said, I'd like to introduce my company. Charlie Bravo Aviation is an aircraft broker and dealer based in Austin, Texas. We do transactions all over the world. We've done transactions over the years, hundreds of them, involving clients in more than 40 countries. We have experience in all types of aircrafts and sizes, from helicopters and turboprops to large jets. I'm not going to say we're the most experienced brokers in the entire world, because there are guys still doing this who were selling airplanes when the first business jets were introduced in the 1960s. But I will say that we have a young, innovative outlook. We are progressive with the way that we do things, and we've come up with great results for our clients. We maintain an extensive network of professionals around the world with other brokers, service centers, operators, attorneys, banks, etc. And here's a little more about who I am. As I mentioned when we started the webinar, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Charlie Bravo Aviation. I'm also the Vice President for Business Aviation for the International Aviation Women's Association, and I maintain an active role in NBAA, the National Air Transportation Association's President's Council, the National Aircraft Finance Association, and the Women Presidents Organization. I got involved in aviation by marriage. My husband's father was a pilot for Nationwide Insurance most of his career, and I have come to really love this industry, the business of it, and what private aviation can do for businesses and influencers. But my first love is journalism. I went to school to be a news writer and editor. I love stories. I love quotes, as you already found out, and I really love to write. Last year, I combined my love of business and journalism and wrote a book called Crushing Mediocrity, based on some lessons from my life and some amazing people that I've met along the way. One of my friends, who's a podcaster, interviewed me after I wrote the book, and he said, "So what are you doing to crush mediocrity, Renee? What's that one big area where you're putting your money where your mouth is?" I had some ideas already, but I accepted that challenge and said, you know what? I'm going to create a way that more people can buy private airplanes without getting fleeced, without losing money inadvertently, especially for the people buying smaller planes or just getting started in private aviation. So we're here on this webinar today because I accepted that challenge. So let's get into the meat of the presentation. Today's topics for saving thousands, even millions of dollars on private aviation has three main areas of concentration. And there are a bunch of tips under each one of these topics. The first one is choosing the right plane. The second one is building the right team. And the third one is developing the right plan. We're going to go over all three of those today. Now, I promise in this webinar that I'm going to give you as many tips as I can in this limited amount of time. I'll answer questions at the end. So again, if you would like to type those in the sidebar at the right, I'll look over them as they're coming in and then answer them at the end of the webinar. And then I'm going to give you an opportunity at the end of the webinar to get more in-depth help with our brand new Clear Skies program. VFR is much easier than cloudy skies, right? There are a couple of recurrent problems that I see, and these are the reasons I put together this webinar. And that's that you may know the benefits of owning and operating a private plane, how much it can help you grow your business or expand your sphere of influence, but you could overspend if you don't know what you're doing. And we've all seen that happen a lot in this industry. Or you may already be wasting time on commercial aviation and you don't want to waste even more time trying to get up to speed on what's available from a private aviation standpoint. You've looked for, but haven't been able to find a single access point, a one-stop resource for knowing what you're doing, and that's what we're working on here. There are a couple of different scenarios that we see from a research perspective when people are buying a plane. One thing that people do is they have a pilot or a friend help them. The next thing we see people do is assign a project to a CFO, an attorney, or a special projects manager in their business. The third thing we see people typically doing is conducting all of the research themselves, and this can become incredibly tedious. The downfalls can be that your pilot doesn't necessarily know the markets or the sales process. He knows a lot about planes, and he may make a great decision for you on a plane, but he's not going to know some of the pitfalls that can come along with an aircraft purchase, some of the legal ramifications, the tax scenarios, and really what might be a better aircraft. Your CFO or attorney or special projects manager may know how to manage transactions really well, but not know a lot about planes. When you're doing your own research, you may fail to consider some minor detail like the runway limitations of your favorite or vacation destination. You may or may not want to pay a broker who can help you, or you may hire the wrong one and end up in even more trouble. It is possible to have someone guide you through all of the necessary steps, but isn't it better to make sure you know all the steps? I've been doing this for 15 years, and there are still a number of experts I call on for advice. Tax codes change, laws certainly change, and international transactions have complications. There are no hard, fast templates for an aircraft transaction, but there are steps you need to follow to make sure all the questions were anticipated. For instance, I'm working on a deal right now where the buyer's advisor, and I use advisor loosely, didn't have the right connections to get a best case avionics upgrade quote, and the deal almost fell apart over that. He didn't know what the international registry was or if the bank would require it, and he didn't know that he needed to address the sales or use tax issue before closing. Even though I represent the seller, I've been educating the buyer and his advisor along the way. You have to know the right questions, and that's where we're going. In choosing the right plane, here are some areas where I see people making mistakes that can end up costing them a lot of money. The first thing is that you need to choose the right aircraft for your mission. Markets have changed significantly. So 10 years ago, where you used to spend $2 million on only a light jet, and an older one at that, now you can buy any size aircraft for $2 million. So you need to make sure that you're buying the right plane for where you're flying, who you're flying, when you're flying, and why you're flying. There are a lot of choices out there. Just last month, I was at a speaking engagement in South Florida. Afterwards, I was chatting with a broker who's based there. I asked him, as we usually do in the industry, what he was looking for, and he told me he was looking for a Falcon 50 that he could put on a charter certificate. I asked him why he was looking at a Falcon 50. He said, well, I need something with a really comfortable cabin that's just a workhorse getting people places. I said, well, there aren't a lot of Falcon 50s in that price range anymore that don't need a lot of work, but have you considered a Citation 3 or a Citation 7? He's a broker, and those aircraft weren't even on his radar. There are a number of choices that can accomplish the same mission. There are a number of choices within every budget, and you need to take all of those choices into consideration along with their operating budgets. You also need to think about depreciation. Yes, you can get bonus depreciation in the US on a new plane right now, but the values of those aircraft are falling very rapidly post-sale, so you probably want to take both aspects of depreciation into consideration. Tip number 2 is that you really want to understand true market values. Keep in mind, most people look at controller.com when they're looking for a plane, which just reflects asking prices. There are no places that sales prices are published anywhere. Those are kept proprietary, usually by a confidentiality clause in the contract. And so you may or may not know what similar planes are being sold for. The only way to really know those is by following the market carefully over time. We do that. This illustration here is from one of our market reports. So we look at this month after month over a several year period to account for that. And there are a lot of variables that go into a true value. Total time, damage history, upcoming maintenance that can cause an aircraft to be worth more or less, even when you're comparing the same year models. Demand can shift a market pretty quickly. For instance, and we're seeing this right now, if 10 Gulfstream 450s sell in a single quarter, the ones left on the market are suddenly more scarce, maybe not as nice, but scarcity raised prices. Ultimately, a plane is worth what a buyer will pay for it and what a seller will accept. The third thing in choosing the right plane is that pedigree is more important than aesthetics. You can always change the paint and interior of the plane. You cannot change the maintenance history. If a plane has shoddy maintenance history, you may have problems. You may have problems now, and you may have problems when you try to resell it. It's important knowing how many owners that a plane's had and be able to look back and see that the title's clear. The third thing I would look at is foreign history. For instance, look at the picture of this airplane. It's here with a palm tree. It looks like a lovely destination. But if the airplane you're considering is based at a location with high humidity and high temperatures, a lot of times that can be a corrosive environment, which can cause early corrosion in the aircraft, which is something that you definitely need to look out for. So knowing where the aircraft has been maintained, under what standards it's been maintained, if everything's been done to have the aircraft in the country that you want to take it into, all of those things are important when you're looking at the history of the plane. The pedigree of the plane is more important than the nice seats or even the Wi-Fi that's already been installed. So moving on to building your team, my first tip here addresses a place where I see people spend thousands and thousands of dollars unnecessarily, and that's in making a bad choice on legal counsel. Pilots are not attorneys. Brokers are not attorneys. You may need to get some legal representation in some aspects of buying a plane. One thing that's really important is if that attorney has aviation experience. You definitely don't want them to be trying to figure out how to manage your deal on your dime. You want them to already know the questions that need to be asked and the things that need to be addressed. Another thing you want to make sure your legal counsel has is aviation tax knowledge. This can be very complex. You can spend a lot of money on taking care of taxes and arrears, or you can handle the planning for that on the front end. The other thing that I would advise, and I did write a blog about this recently, is check the references of your attorney. Talk to a couple of people that he or she has worked with and ask up front how much it will cost for your transaction. Some attorneys, there are several aviation groups that offer a flat fee for managing your aircraft transaction. That's a great way to save money in the long run. Next, in building the right team, be wary of letting technical people make financial decisions. Complex transactions require specialties. Technical people can look at all the different aspects of a plane and make sure it's safe and airworthy, but they can't necessarily make sound financial decisions as far as direct operating costs or annual budget or tax planning. So make sure you're getting the right advice from the right people. When in doubt, second opinions really help. Then, we see this a lot with aircraft owners who are not owner-operators, that they end up with more avionics upgrades or more plane or more other upgrades than they need because their advisor likes that particular upgrade, or in some cases, they're getting a kickback for installing it. Next, and this is a big deal, you need to know what to expect from a pre-purchase inspection. I put a mirror in here because of an early experience in an inspection that we had here at Charlie Bravo. Our buyer, who was a Vietnam vet with a ton of aviation experience, showed up to the inspection, his initial visual inspection, with a mirror and a flashlight. He ruled out 2 airplanes in 20 minutes just by looking at wheel well corrosion. After that, we did a full inspection on the one he thought passed his initial test, and it's been a great plane for them. One thing that's important is to define discrepancies and who's going to pay for them in the purchase agreement. A lot of times we include in the purchase agreement that the service center is going to determine whether squawk is airworthy or not. If someone has a discrepancy with what the service center says, we note that we refer back to the maintenance manual. And anticipating upcoming maintenance is critical. I met someone a few years ago who, when he bought his smaller Citation, and unfortunately it was his first plane, he didn't realize it had about $700,000 worth of maintenance coming due. And so he got into a $1 million plane for just under $1 million. But then once he did all of the maintenance, he was way upside down in that plane. And I don't mean in barrel rolls either. The next thing I'd say about pre-purchase inspections is that the logbook review might be the most important item in the inspection. Obviously, you're going to look at that plane and make sure everything works and it flies properly. But if the logbooks are not in order, the plane is worth a lot less, like 50% less, depending on the extent of the missing data. This is especially true if the aircraft has been serviced outside of the country, as it will limit your ability to get an airworthiness certificate. Now we're moving on to developing the right plan. My 7th tip is that you need to do your tax planning before your purchase. You need to know the local laws. Is there a personal property tax? Is there a sales tax flyaway exemption that you want to take advantage of here in the US? Does that mean you're paying use tax instead when you bring it back to your local base? Here in Texas, it's really important to have your sale for resale certificate before you take delivery of the aircraft, so that you're paying use tax on that aircraft instead of sales tax. Again, understanding the local laws, covering that tax plan before you make a purchase is really important. You need to understand reporting the use of your aircraft accurately for accounting and tax purposes, especially if you let others use your plane. Next, you need to make sure you're doing business with someone really reputable in managing your aircraft. If you're having a pilot manage your plane, you need to talk with other people who've used that pilot in the past as well. Does he or she have enough experience with the plane type, or are they learning as they go? If it's a larger management company, do they submit to third-party audits? Those can give peace of mind for sure. Lastly, you need to count all the costs before you charter your plane out to others. We hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to buy a plane and I'll charter it out and I'll recoup all my costs, and essentially I'm going to fly for free. And that really just isn't the case. It will offset some of your fixed expenses, but then increased hours also mean more maintenance. Keep in mind that if other people are using your plane, they may not be as careful with the interior or the exterior of your aircraft as you are. So you're going to have more wear, which means you'll probably be refurbishing sooner. And if you're chartering your plane, you need to understand the terms of the maintenance contract and what percentage you'll be receiving. I have covered a lot of information here, but I feel like I barely scratched the tip of the iceberg because there are so many different things that can cost you money, or where you can save money with your aircraft purchase and subsequent ownership. That's really why I came up with this concept called the Clear Skies course. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, and I'm going to talk about it now. Disclaimer here, I'm in a little bit of trouble because I showed it to the team in my office, and they said, you're going to work us right out of a job because you're essentially teaching people how to be a great airplane breaker. There is some truth to that. In the course, I take you through all the steps and let you know what to do to buy the plane effectively. So what is the Clear Skies course? It's an online resource in a go-at-your-own-pace format, so you can click in and out of the lessons whenever you want. If you need to know about 1031 exchanges or Wi-Fi upgrades today, it's at your fingertips. It's always available, and you can log on anywhere. It's set up for responsive websites, so you can even watch it on your phone or tablet. When you enroll, you will know what you don't know. You will definitely save money, much more than you invest in the program. You'll have reliable resources at your fingertips, with more being released as members request them. And if you decide to use Charlie Bravo to acquire or sell an aircraft for you, you can apply the enrollment cost to the acquisition or listing fee. So what does it look like? Inside the Clear Skies course, and I'll give you a quick tour in a minute, you're going to see that we have 6 different modules, and each one of those talks about a different aspect of the buying process. In each module, we have video lessons. There are a total of 28 lessons in the course, and each module contains a varying number of lessons. They're roughly 8 to 12 minutes apiece. There are a couple that are a little bit longer. Some of them, about half of them probably, are video presentations by me, And the other half are interviews with experts. Because as I mentioned before, I've been doing this for a long time, but I still don't know everything about all the regulations and banking requirements or airworthiness directives. And besides, it's always interesting to get other people's perspectives on things as well. Just so you can kind of see what this looks like, Module 1 is about the aviation plan. We're going to assess your mission. We're going to assess your budget with a pretty cool calculator. We're going to talk about where your mission and budget meet. We'll discuss your aviation plan options, and that's all of the options up to including buying an aircraft. I go through everything from fractional programs and jet cards to Wheels Up, Jet Smarter, and some regional programs in Texas, California, Colorado, and Europe. Plus, we're going to go over what to watch for in charter if you're chartering an aircraft. You can see in each lesson that there are audio and transcript choices if you're not a video learner, and each lesson is noted with the playing time. Also, these are hosted on Vimeo, so if you're a chipmunk fan, you can always speed it up and watch the video a lot faster. By the way, this module, Module 1, is available for purchase separately for a limited time, and I'll talk about that a little later. In Module 2, we're going to break down the costs and financing. In this module, we'll estimate fixed annual cost and teach you how to calculate those along with your direct operating costs. And then we'll talk about what goes into financing an aircraft. We'll talk about offsetting costs with charter. We'll talk about financing and leasing options. Some of these things have changed in recent years, so I have expert input in this section. In Module 3, we're going to talk about making the right offer on the right plane. So obviously, we're going to look at your aircraft selection, the pros and cons of buying new or pre-owned, and finally, we'll review good offer parameters. I break down everything I put into an offer when I put one together for a client. In Module 4, we take those terms even further and talk about creating and negotiating the purchase agreement. We discuss what to look for in the pre-purchase inspection with one of the best independent shops in the nation. We talk about choosing the right location for a pre-purchase inspection. And again, I talk about all the questions you should ask your attorney before you choose one. Module 5 is probably the most robust module. In this, we talk about legal structure for purchasing an aircraft. We'll talk about tax planning, and both of those are with an attorney I respect who has nearly 30 years of experience as both an attorney and a pilot. We talk about using 1031 exchange for tax purposes. We talk about aviation insurance. Then I do a deep dive on choosing your management company and how that might change if you're planning to allow charter on your aircraft. In Module 6, we talk about closing and what it means to use an escrow agent for that process. We talk about upgrades to your aircraft. We'll talk about others' use of your plane and how you can get in trouble with that. Then we talk about ongoing maintenance and how that impacts your resale value. Plus, inside the course, you'll have access to, and in this resource section, you'll have access to 55 now, quarterly market reports. We update those once a quarter. They just came out last week for last quarter based on our world-class research. We have 5 different buyer's guides available for you, and each one of these has a 2-page spread on each aircraft that's available. There are hundreds of jets and turboprops that we cover, and of course you can buy those separately on our website. We have one for light jets and one for mid-sized jets, one for large, one for turboprops, and then one that is just dedicated to those that can be flown by a single pilot. Then we have a private aviation terms glossary with more than 500 terms that we use in private aviation. We provide a trip cost calculator tool and even a customized aircraft cost calculator report for you. All these things are worth more than $30,000 a year, and they're available to you anytime in the resources tab of the course. This is what it looks like. Plus, we'll send you an email as we add more lessons or more resources. If you're like me, you're ready to cut to the chase here. What's the investment in all this money and time-saving data? The Clear Skies course is available for just $5,000. I've been told that's a ridiculous bargain. Furthermore, I really like decisive people. So for today only, I'll take $10,000 off of any acquisition you do with us this year instead of $5,000. That's only if you buy it today. If you're buying piston aircraft and you don't want to pay our minimum $50,000 acquisition fee, then as a thank you for buying today, I'll share my offer and purchase agreement templates for you for free if you sign up today. So what's it worth? This program is amazing, and I think it would be worth the $5,000 if you only got a list of tax, legal, operations, and insurance questions to ask. It would be worth it if you only know you explored all the options and selected the right plane for your mission. It would be worth it if you only got referrals for best-in-class, trustworthy service providers for every step in the process. It would be worth it if you only got a basic education so you don't sound stupid in the boardroom or on the golf course. Enough about that. I love this quote. Jim Rohn, who died several years ago, was an entrepreneur in the United States who said, if you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. We see a lot of that. So here are the top 3 excuses I hear about not buying the course right now. I'm not buying a plane right now. Well, what if you delay and then there's a once-in-a-lifetime deal that comes across your desk? This is a limited time offer, and if you take it, you'll have the resources to make sure that you don't lose money in that deal. Yeah, plane ownership is probably not for me. You might be surprised if you count all the costs. Also, we do have a Clear Skies course light version that you can purchase that's just module 1 that talks about all of the options that are outside of full plane ownership. It gives you the same trip cost calculator and mission and budget assessment tools that you get as a full Clear Skies course member. You may say, I've already graduated, I'm not a good student, I'm not watching training videos. Well, buy your hired guns this course to make sure they don't miss any steps. There's nothing saying that just because you buy it doesn't mean you can't delegate it to one of your employees to go through. One of the reasons this whole course came about was when Kurt, my husband and business partner, was on the golf course. I know some of you are super surprised about that. During the round of 18 holes, someone in his foursome had all of these same excuses. This particular man was using NetJets for his private flight needs. By the end of the round, he was thinking about doing something different. We started talking. We calculated the cost differences between NetJets and the Citation 10. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in the course. We found the best Citation 10. We arranged for the pre-purchase inspection. We recommended financiers. We supervised the pre-purchase inspection, overcoming issues as they arose. We knew the right questions to ask and the right person to trust. And we got quotes from several management companies helping our client find the best fit. We negotiated a better price and deadline for paint and interior refurbishments. As we spoke on a daily basis with this man, I noted all of his questions. The answers, along with a lot more that he didn't need, but I've heard over the years, are included in this Clear Skies course. In the course, all of that information is compacted down into 5 to 12-minute lessons that you can watch as a video, read the transcript, or listen to as an audio clip. So here's how to order. Either the full course or the light version. Go to clearskiesclub.com, click the button, pay. You'll have immediate access to the course. If you have questions, you can enter them here in the webinar question box or send me an email at renee@wepush10.com. Here's one question I got from Fred earlier. Fred says he's a combat wounded U.S. Army veteran. Fred, thank you so much for your service. We really appreciate you and honor you so much. He served in Afghanistan in 2002. He's currently working as a pilot based in Medford, Oregon. He says, I always wanted to learn about aircraft acquisitions and sales. Is there any way that I could broker aircraft deals in the future? Do you think that this course could help me? Well, Fred, absolutely, this course will help you get the basics down. One of the most important things that we have to offer is experience. And that's one of the things that I'm sharing in this course is our experiences. So of course, yes, you'll have the basics. Yes, I think it could help you. And we'd be happy to work with you on that. I look forward to working with anyone who'd like to take the course. So that said, I don't see any more questions in the box on the right. So if you do have questions or comments or need anything else from us, please email me, and I look forward to talking to you soon.